1946, Gandhi wrote that the Jews have erred grievously in seeking to impose themselves on Palestine with the aid of America and Britain, and now with the aid of naked terrorism. Gandhi questioned the very foundational logic of political Zionism by pointing out that the Palestine of the biblical conception is not a geographical tract.
It all began with that this is biblical land. And of course, the Bible is a religious text. And to interpret it as a historical text is sacrilegious as far as I'm concerned, actually. But it's also wrong and inappropriate because it is not, the geography of the Bible is very weird and very untrue to the actual geography of the land.
In their search for international support, several Jewish leaders approached Gandhi. But Gandhi disapproved of the Zionist project for both political and religious reasons. Palestine belongs to the Arabs in the same sense that England belongs to the English or France to the French. It is wrong and inhuman to impose the Jews on the Arabs.
It all started with the evangelicals and with Balfour. Balfour, in his declaration in 1917.
The British wanted to hand over a part of Palestine, which they were then administering under League of Nations mandate, to a friendly new Jewish state.
A York transport landing at Leda Airport brings delegates to the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine.
In the aftermath of Nazi Germany's genocide, a UN General Assembly resolution in November 1947 proposed two states in the Palestinian territory. The Jewish state of Israel, taking up 55% of the area, and the other a Palestinian state. Jerusalem was to be a separate entity under the United Nations. Soon after the November 1947 UN resolution, violence broke out in Palestine. The Jewish side knew that they were a minority even in their part of Palestine, which is why the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians began. The aim was to change the demographic composition of what would become Israel. Armed groups attacked Palestinian villages and towns. People were killed or driven out. There were massacres in a number of places. However, the two-state solution was never legally formalized, either through a Security Council resolution or through negotiations with Palestinians. The British withdrew from its mandate on May 15, 1948.
After years of strenuous but unavailing effort, His Majesty's government have reached the conclusion that they are not able to bring about a settlement in Palestine based upon the consent of both Arabs and Jews, and that the mandate is no longer workable.
Today, the British mandate over the land of Israel ends. We declare a Jewish state in the ancient land of Israel. It will be called the State of Israel.
The Arab states opposed the formation of a Jewish state on Palestinian land without the consent of the Palestinians. This triggered the first Arab-Israeli war.
Jordan border. The rarely photographed King Abdullah reviewed a brigade of reinforcements from Iraq.
Eight to 900,000 Palestinians were forced out of their homes and never allowed to return again. This is what Palestinians remember as the Nakba or the catastrophe. After the war, Israel emerged with 73% of Palestinian territory. A Jewish population of barely 30% now controlled almost 3/4 of Palestine. The West Bank became a part of Jordan, and Gaza to the south came under Egypt. The Palestinian majority was reduced to being either second-class citizens in Israel or refugees, some in their own lands in West Bank and Gaza.
A land that the Jews claim is Jewish land, and as far as the farmers and the way of life and so on, it was their land, and they never had to prove to anybody that it's their land. So in the course of the 25 years, I go through the various changes, and the worst of all is the drawing of a new map, which makes us, the original inhabitants of the land, feel like strangers in our own land. The features are so changed, the roads are changed constantly, so that we get lost in our own land. And that, I can tell you, is a very weird and difficult feeling to experience.
Indian freedom fighters supported Palestinian Arab nationalism. Nehru too wrote, Palestine was not a wilderness or an empty, uninhabited place. It was already somebody else's home. In September 1938 in Delhi, the All India Congress Committee said in a resolution that Britain should leave the Jews and the Arabs to amicably settle the issues between the two parties. Unlike Gandhi, Golwalkar's view was that the Jews had maintained their race, religion, culture and language. All they wanted was their natural territory to complete their nationality. Zionism made sense to someone who wanted an Indian nation held together by one religion. In January 1992, India established an ambassadorial level relationship with Israel. Significant military and intelligence ties were established. This shift was part of the shift in how India would see itself in the future. The relationship with the US became a major driving factor, and Israel a part of this overall matrix. India's military ties with Israel have boosted Israel's defense industry, making it one of the top 5 exporters of military hardware. India accounted for 50% of Israel's military exports, surpassing Russia as the number 1 arms supplier to India in 2008. Not only is India the biggest customer, but it has also bought more arms than Israel's own armed forces. India continues to formally support Palestine's right to an independent state, but its increasing defense and intelligence ties with Israel create an obvious contradiction. In contrast to this new official relationship with Israel, many Indians are part of the international solidarity movement for Palestine. Inspired by the South African example, 170 Palestinian organizations initiated the Palestine Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions or BDS campaign. In 2005, the BDS Steering Committee appealed to India to stop its arms trade with Israel.
By supporting the Palestinian cause and the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, India helped the non-aligned movement to fight against colonialism. Its principled position rightfully earned for India a trust all over West Asia. Today, unfortunately, we see India moving away from this anti-colonial position, effectively supporting Israeli apartheid. This harms not only our struggle for true self-determination, but also Indian image that has been built all over its history.
Israel, the occupier, spends a great deal on building brand Israel that can be sold in countries like India. Indian solidarity with occupied Palestine is only worthwhile if we make sure India does not contribute to subsidizing the Israeli colonial war machine.